Long ago, at the edge of a bustling kingdom, stood a small town known for one thing: its lanterns. Every evening, hundreds of glowing lanterns illuminated the roads, markets, and courtyards. Travelers often said that, from a distance, the town looked like a field of stars resting upon the earth. Among the many lantern makers lived a young craftsman named Lucas. His lanterns were beautiful. He carved delicate patterns into their frames. He polished every piece of glass by hand. He spent hours perfecting details that most people would never even notice. Yet despite all his effort, his lanterns rarely sold. Customers would stop at his stall, admire his work, and then walk away to buy from older, more established craftsmen. Day after day, Lucas watched others empty their shelves while his own remained full. At first, he tried to stay hopeful. Things will improve, he told himself. But weeks became months, months became years, and little by little, hope turned into bitterness. Whenever another craftsman succeeded, Lucas found a reason to resent them. They have better connections. They were lucky. People only buy from familiar faces. The world rewards the wrong people. The more he repeated these thoughts, the more convinced he became that life was unfair. Soon, his disappointment began showing itself everywhere. Customers noticed it in his voice. Neighbors noticed it in his attitude. Even simple conversations often turned into complaints. If business was slow, he complained. If another craftsman prospered, he complained. If a customer chose someone else's lantern, he complained. Without realizing it, Lucas had become a man who could find a shadow in every sunrise. And eventually, people stopped lingering at his stall. Not because his lanterns were poor, but because spending time around him felt heavy. Yet Lucas never considered that possibility. In his mind, the problem was always somewhere else. Then one autumn, everything changed. A violent storm swept across the kingdom. Dark clouds swallowed the sky. Rain poured for days. Winds roared through the streets with such force that trees were uprooted and rooftops torn apart. When the storm finally passed, the town looked almost unrecognizable. Lantern posts had collapsed. Hundreds of lanterns lay shattered across the roads. Market stalls were damaged. Homes needed repairs. And when evening came, much of the town sat in darkness. The townspeople gathered in the square, staring at the destruction. Many wondered how long recovery would take. Weeks? Months? Perhaps even longer. As they discussed the damage, an old traveler arrived. He was a familiar face. For years, he had passed through the town during his journeys. The people expected him to share their concern. Instead, he looked around and smiled. The reaction was immediate. One merchant frowned. "Have you lost your senses?" Another pointed toward the broken lanterns. "What exactly is there to smile about?" The traveler calmly replied, "I see something you don't." Then he continued on his way. The answer irritated nearly everyone, but it haunted Lucas. All day, he found himself thinking about those words. What could possibly be worth smiling about? The roads were damaged, the town was struggling, everything seemed worse than ever. That evening, curiosity overcame him. He searched until he found the traveler sitting alone at a small inn. Lucas approached him. "What did you mean earlier?" he asked. The old man looked up. "About what? You said you saw something nobody else could see." The traveler gestured toward an empty chair. "Sit." After pouring 2 cups of tea, he pointed toward the window. "What do you see outside?" Lucas looked. Broken roads, damaged buildings, darkness. The traveler nodded. "Exactly." Lucas frowned. "What do you mean, exactly?" The old man smiled. "That's all you see." Lucas crossed his arms. "What else is there?" The traveler took a slow sip of tea. "Need." Lucas looked confused. The old man continued. "The roads are dark. The lanterns are broken. The town needs light more than ever." For a moment, Lucas said nothing. The traveler leaned forward. Most people spend their lives staring at what was lost. Positive people look for what can still be created. The words lingered in Lucas's mind long after he returned home. That night, he barely slept. Again and again, he replayed the conversation. For years, he had focused on closed doors. Perhaps he had become so busy counting obstacles that he had stopped noticing opportunities. Before sunrise, Lucas made a decision. He gathered every lantern he still had. Then he loaded them onto a cart and headed into town. Instead of waiting for customers to come to him, he began hanging lanterns along the darkest roads. He placed them outside damaged homes, near wells, at crossroads, around the market square. He asked for no payment. He attached no signs. He told no one his name. He simply wanted the town to have light again. That evening, as darkness settled across the streets, warm golden lanterns began glowing throughout the town. Children laughed as they played outside. Shopkeepers stayed open later. Families felt safer walking home. For the first time since the storm, the town felt alive again. The next morning, people began asking questions. Who had placed the lanterns? Who had restored light to the streets? Eventually, they discovered the answer. Word spread quickly, but something even more important happened. Lucas noticed a change within himself. For the first time in years, he spent an entire day thinking about solutions instead of problems. And strangely, he felt lighter. The bitterness that had followed him for so long began loosening its grip. Over the following weeks, Lucas continued helping. If a lantern broke, he repaired it. If a neighbor needed assistance, he volunteered. If darkness appeared somewhere in town, he looked for a way to bring light. Not because he expected anything in return, but because he had discovered something unexpected. Helping others felt better than complaining about life. Months passed. The town slowly recovered. Roads were rebuilt, buildings were repaired, markets reopened, life returned to normal. Yet people did not forget who had helped them through the hardest days. More customers began visiting Lucas's workshop. Then more arrived, and then more. Soon, his lanterns were being purchased not only throughout the town, but in neighboring villages as well. Ironically, success arrived only after he stopped chasing it. Years later, Lucas had become one of the most respected lantern makers in the region. His workshop was thriving. Apprentices worked under him. His lanterns illuminated roads far beyond the kingdom. One evening, he encountered the old traveler again. The moment Lucas recognized him, he rushed forward with a smile. "You changed my life," he said. The traveler laughed softly. "No." Lucas looked puzzled. The old man continued, "You changed your life. I only asked you to look at the same world differently." For a long moment, then he smiled, because he finally understood. The storm had never been the opportunity. The opportunity had always been there. The storm had simply revealed it. Years later, people would tell the story of Lucas and the Great Storm. Many believed his success came from his skill as a lantern maker. Others believed it came from the goodwill he earned by helping the town. But those who knew the full story understood something deeper. The storm had not changed Lucas's life. The lanterns had not changed Lucas's life. The town had not changed Lucas's life. What changed his life was the moment he stopped searching for reasons to be discouraged and started searching for reasons to act. Because every life eventually faces its own storm. Moments when plans fall apart, moments when the future seems uncertain, moments when darkness appears to be winning. And in those moments, two paths quietly appear. One path asks, "Why did this happen?" The other asks, "What can be built from here?" The answer to that question often determines far more than the storm itself. Perhaps that is why the people of the town remembered Lucas for so many years. Not because he made the finest lanterns, not because he became successful, but because when darkness arrived, he chose to become a source of light, and history has always remembered those who do. Positivity is not seeing a world without problems, it is seeing possibilities that problems try to hide. Positivity is not pretending that the storm isn't real, it is refusing to believe that the storm is the end of the story. The same challenge can break one person and strengthen another. The difference is often found in what they choose to focus on. And sometimes, the smallest shift in perspective becomes the beginning of an entirely different life. Until our next story. May every challenge reveal an opportunity that was impossible to see before. And may every small light you create help illuminate a path for someone else.